Dear Lord, we ask that you come into this city of Lima, Ohio. We realize that there's been a lot of things going on. Dear Lord, we ask that you wrap your hands around the families and the victims of the violent crimes that have been taking place here lately. We understand, Lord Jesus, that you are in control of all things, and you're the Alpha Omega of all. Lord, we ask that each counselor, each person of administration be that beacon of light in our community to represent us well. We also ask that you pray for our police officers who are out in the streets, who have to deal with such situations. Lord, we ask that you touch each and every youth, that they know that their actions cause a ripple effect upon all, and for them to just do the right thing, Lord, and that is to look towards you for guidance and support. In your Son, Christ Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Gordon?
Here.
Mr. McLean?
Here.
Mr. Lowe?
Here.
Mr. Tevin?
Here.
Miss Adams?
Here.
Mr. Glenn?
Here.
Mrs. Miles?
Here.
And Mr. Nixon.
Here. We'll start tonight's meeting with a public hearing for the CDBG, or Consolidated Plan. This public hearing is scheduled and required by HUD's regulations, and we will start this. I'll have Amy Odom give a brief presentation, and then we will open the floor for comment on the proposed allocations.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, this is the second public hearing. We had given a proposed slate of allocations at the last meeting. This is an opportunity for further review. This is year 5 in our 5-year plan. This will be for the last year within that 5-year plan cycle. Actions taken at the last meeting, that there were 20 proposals that requested funding, about $424,000 worth of proposals from home dollars, versus $678,000 that was available for allocation. We'll talk about that later. But CDBG, there was about $3.1 million worth of requests, but only $1.1 million available for funding. So in CDBG, there's almost $2 million more in requests than there is available funding this year. Of the 20 proposals received, 16 were recommended for allocation, while 4 were denied, although found eligible, were denied for lack of available funding. I do need to make one change from our last meeting, and I provided council and also persons in the audience basically a scoring sheet for the requests that came in. At our last meeting, I had stated that the application received by Jose and Sons Recycling was ineligible based upon HUD and CDBG coding. However, after consultation with HUD, it was found that the activity that they proposed is an eligible activity. However, that does not mean, again, all it means is that, yes, if there is funding available, it can be considered for funding. But there are many other criteria that go into the funding of a project. What you'll find on the list that you see here are the prioritizations based upon the scoring for the each of the applications that we received. They were scored on 11 items with up to 5 points for each of those items, and then averaged by 11. So the highest perfect score you could get was a 5. That is based upon meeting the HUD criteria, also for completeness and for priority within the city's comprehensive consolidated plan, 5-year plan. So I wanted to provide that because that was a question that was asked, but clarifying that all projects were found eligible, but there was always a question about available funding. Another request that was made, and I know it's difficult to see on the overhead, but you should be able to see it in your handout, was a request for clarification on some of the funding. As I had mentioned, at home is a little confusing this year. There is a home, as you know, can only be spent on housing projects for low to moderate income persons. There was a question about why was there such a significant carryover. The reason is because we have the grand fortune of doing this process right in the middle of a rollout of some new home rules. Home rule is affecting the way that in which we can allocate funds. There are some funds they are asking us to place on hold until we receive a, I don't want to say a disposition, but a opinion from HUD on how the remainder of those home funds can be spent. Those home funds that are on hold are the funds that are, for an example, some of the Chodo funds that were not used because they have not fielded a project for the last 2 years, and also a very, very old, small portion of carryover, which normally has to be disposed of in a different way. We've been told to hold that until they give the final interpretation of the rule. That being said, what you see here is showing you the allocations. The way this reads, as it has in the last, is showing you the new money that is coming in at the top for home resources, the new funds that are coming in. It shows it comparatively from the last cycle, which was 13-14, to the new one, 14-15. It shows any estimated income, meaning income that may be coming back, and also to give you the total of those new funds. You go to the second section, it will show you the amount that is requested, the amount that is carried over, or funds that were not spent last year, what is reprogrammed, meaning if it's been moved from one program to another, and for instance, in home, you'll see that we had moved some funds from the Renew loans, taken those out, and have moved those into our first-time Lima program. The allocation is the new money, which is, again, the new funds and also the program income being allocated. And the total is the total dollar amount that program will be receiving, our recommendation for the 14-15 year. It shows, again, the percentage of the home funds it's using, the variance, meaning between what they requested and what they received, and then that same number, that variance being expressed in a percentage. So this is just a, again, showing you basically what we showed you last time, but with some clarification on the home. Any questions on that? Oops, excuse me.
I got two questions.
Sure.
Mr. President. On the first sheet. What's the letters beside the units made under matrix code? What does
Oh,
that mean?
matrix code
'Cause
is
several of
actually,
them's got threes, but there's an A, an E8. What
okay.
is that?
Matrix codes really are just a coding device for HUD. This is a form we'll be using for HUD. That's just showing them the type of that is the
So is it one
activity or the
above
fund
another?
size. Excuse
Oh,
me?
That's the activity that they go to?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, my other question is, you just state what you said about the home switching to something. I didn't understand why it was moved.
Okay. Our recommendation was, we took money out of the Renew loans. Renew were the loan program. In our earlier hearings, we had talked about the fact that we had a very low subscription to that. We, in fact, have only had, last year, we only had one person apply for a loan. That's something you have to pay back. It's up to $25,000. Because there has been such poor activity in that, we decided to move that into the First Home Lima area and also into the, because those are the down payment assistance, and that seems to be the most productive use of those funds.
Was the poor activity due to the credit score that they have to have? I mean, that's why they're coming to us, because they can't afford it, and then when their
Very
credit score,
often,
they can't get nothing.
it is a matter of credit score, which is why we talked about using some of these funds, or actually using some funds out of home update, going to be using some of these funds for home update counseling. This is another item we spoke about in our other hearings, which says that in the past, if you would come to us for a down payment assistance, you would go through our First Home Lima program. What we're now suggesting, if you're coming to us for a home repair loan or home rehab loan, that we would have you go through a similar program. What we're finding are people are asking for funds when their credit is so poor that they can't afford to take another loan, or they're making decisions to repair homes that perhaps with some financial counseling, they might find an alternative to repairing that home, meaning they may be better off living somewhere else. So our recommendation was placing some money in home update counseling.
Okay, not to prolong this.
Okay.
But just real shortly. From the sidewalk to the street is city property. Tree limb falls down on lady's house, puts a hole in her roof. She comes up here because she has nothing. And then we tell her she can't get it because her credit score, she was away 1 point from the credit score. She couldn't apply. She had nothing. But then code enforcement would go out and say, your house is destroyed, you need to do something. She ended up losing her house and had to get out. And we got a lady that worked every single day that was willing, but because of past history with credit, she was stuck. Like, I don't understand why we have a program where we're not going to actually help them.
HUD regulation does not allow us to overburden people with debt, because even though it is a grant, it is still a mortgage attachment, We're not allowed to put people in over 30% of a debt-to-income ratio. They're not allowed to put more money into that. If they're beyond that, that we cannot give them that assistance. That's a regulation. We're not allowed to burden people.
Amy,
Thank
you
Mr.
mentioned,
President.
excuse me, you done?
I'll just give
That's
the
fine.
floor
Go
back
ahead.
to President.
Amy, you mentioned that the score was based on HUD criteria and city priority. Did I hear you correctly on that?
It's based on HUD regulation, meaning is it eligible, and then does this mesh with the city's consolidated plan?
So what percentage would the city priority weigh in on that score that's calculated for everybody? Is it heavily weighted on that?
It's actually one of the items that are scored at the bottom. I believe I can get the form for you. It is something that is part of the mix. I would say it is not the only thing. We break it out into, first of all, is it eligible? Second, does it meet the national objectives of HUD? And thirdly, does it meet the organizational capacity and sustainability? Meaning, are they bringing their own money to the game? Do they have the kind of financial background and other things? Have they done these kind of projects before? And then we do look at, does it mesh with the city's plan? So it is the last criteria that we look at. I believe the weighting of that score is probably maybe 15 to 20% of the score.
Thank you.
So who gets to make that final decision for the city?
I do, and a local RI, we make the first pass at it. We're the persons that look at, does it meet all these criteria? When given the application, we spell out exactly what we're going to be looking at. If you look at the application, there is actually an attachment that shows the city's 5-year plan and the highlights of that plan, so they know the kinds of things that we are looking for.
And you only have one person apply? You was-
For?
When you was talking about the home.
Okay, getting back to that,
Yeah.
getting back to the home renew, that's why we moved the money out of that, is that we only had one successful loan
Do you
last
think
year.
it's a matter of people just not knowing?
We've had, again, a good number of applications. I would say that last year we probably had about 14 applications. The problem is, this is a loan. If you remember, home dollars are difficult dollars to spend, because if you use home dollars, you have to bring the whole house up to code. So you're running against several problems. One is that someone will come to us and say, a branch fell on my house, I need to have my roof repaired. If we go in and find electrical problems, plumbing problems, other problems, we have to bring the whole house up to code. So immediately, you've taken a one-shot repair and turned it into a repair that will probably easily exceed $15,000 to $25,000. That's the regulation. So when we say to someone that you have to, if you're going to be applying for a home update, you have to bring your whole house up to code. The update is the one that is the $15,000. That's a grant. We can usually work with a house that can be brought up for $15,000. The renew is the $25,000. That's the loan. That one you must make payments on. And we're finding few people want to apply for it because you have to make a payment on it. And also finding a house that is qualified is difficult.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Oh, Mr. Glenn,
Mm-hmm.
did Mrs. Miles have, did
No,
you get
I'm-
your
no.
question answered? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Glenn,
Yeah, I'm
I'm
talking.
sorry.
my question is, now, we got two different, a lot of folks are not educated on this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got a call on one making payments, one stay 5 years.
Right.
And you're free of it.
Right.
As long as you stay in the home, you stay in the city of Lima, you're good. And I don't know how this got mistaken on that,
Mm-hmm.
because she said you guys writing her letter saying that she owed money on this.
Mm-hmm.
Because she took out the loan that you had to pay back.
Sure,
Okay.
right. Different products, just like when you go to a bank, different products are going to have different requirements. All of our products require you to stay in your home for a certain period of time. That you must stay depending upon the, again, the HUD regulation states, you're getting this money because you're low to moderate income.
Right.
You're getting this money because you're saying, I can't go anywhere else, I need to sustain my house, I have to sustain my home. So you, on average, if it is under $15,000, that you need to stay for 5 years. Some of the higher loans can be 10 years. Actually, it can be up to 15 years if you're there doing some primary mortgages. At one time, before my time, the city did take some primary mortgages, and so some people may be on a longer period of affordability.
Now, the house is up for collateral then, right? The house is
Absolutely.
collateral. And I just want to make sure, because I always been a big fan of the 5 years and the loan is free. Now, getting into that loan thing, and I know a lot of people don't get it because of that,
Right.
because they don't want to put the deeds up and saying, you know, I got to pay this back. And I'm like, what you got to pay back? Are you going to take that 5-year loan, you stay there 5 years, you good. So,
Again, over years, the terms of the products
started
have
changing around.
changed.
Okay.
But I guess it's a good point, Mr. Glenn. I think we should have always called them loans instead of grants, because there is a requirement. There is a mortgage on your home. If you move out before your period of affordability is over, you do us some money. Some of them were written at a time where, for some seniors, that they were not due an owing until they moved out of the house or sold the house. And that was
Right.
thinking that we didn't want to burden seniors, but at the time they passed away, or they sold the home to move elsewhere, they could pay us. People see this variety of different products and they say, well, I thought I had this. All of it was explained to them at the time the loans were made. Currently, the products that we offer, again, are the Update, which is a 15-year mortgage. It's a $15,000 product that requires you to stay in your home for 5 years. There is a mortgage on your home for that amount. If you do not stay for the 5 years, you have to pay back part of it. And then the other is the Home Renew, which is the $25,000 loan, which again, you must make payments on that as well as stay in the property. Home, again, and home funds, I think the thing just to remember about that, they can only be used for housing for low to moderate income persons. And the program is in flux at this time. They are making new rules and regulations, and in a conference today with HUD, they're suggesting that we move forward as this. If these funds become unfrozen, we would actually have to do a new hearing possibly next year. It would not be within this year, but in next year, we would add that dollar amount and move forward with it.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that? The remainder of the allocations are as stated under CDBG. As we stated before, CDBG can fund a great number of things. It can do housing, but it can do a lot of other activities too. That's where those codes, again, Mr. Lowe, come from. Some of those are the housing codes. Some of those also might be our internal. I don't know, Randy, Candace isn't here tonight, but some of those also might be just the account codes for some of these as well. Yeah,
I believe they are internal, but they're tied to
tied to the HUD
to the
code.
HUD reporting,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So that's, again, nothing to be concerned about, but what we have listed on CDBG is the housing rehab services. That's the portion of CDBG we use to help support the home services, because the home does not allow for much administration, so therefore we use that to pay for our housing loan originator and our housing loan inspector. The police support services program, for those of you that were here before, the request was for the PSSP assistance. By the way, all council members should have received a packet that had all of the applications, so hopefully you have had a chance to review those. But if you have questions, most of the proponents are here tonight. Neighborhood assistance is obviously for our neighborhood support programs. Property maintenance continues to provide the support largely for the salaries of our inspectors. Demolition. Demolition we talked about, that has been very successful. There was a question of why was there not more allocated to that. For those of you who weren't here before, it's because we expect a release of some NSP program income within this year for about $50,000. We also expect a small return of some of the AG funds that we've had for about another $20,000. So we're beginning to see the fruits of some of those earlier grants and returning that. So we hope we can judiciously leverage funds by making this a smaller allocation here and taking those funds as they come in. Streets and curb reconstruction, it's never enough. Mr. Elstro is more than happy to tell you that. They requested $1.4 million. The dollars that are assigned to them are being used to leverage other funds, meaning that those dollars will actually leverage, I believe, Kirk had said over $900,000, nearly $1 million from that 265 that we have allocated there. Parks improvement are for the actual physical improvements to the park. That's not the summer rec program, but that's to make improvements. The rec program is the rec program. The Career Pathways is the program with roads, again, because of its continued success and because it makes a direct impact on employment. Was recommended we continue to fund that because it's a small donation that has a large bang for its buck. Fair housing is something we are required to provide. That is being contracted with LACA. They provide the service for the county as well as the city, and they are certified, HUD certified fair housing provider. They are also a HUD certified housing counseling provider, so we continue to contract with them to provide that service. The grants, the ones that we did not fund are coming up again. And again, these were eligible, much like Jose and Sons was ruled eligible. It's a question of money, it's a question of priorities. It's a question of whether these provide the largest benefit to our community and fit within the requirements of the HUD regulation. So the United Way proposal was not funded. The CDBG administration, again, is something we can take out of the grant that does not exceed the maximum of 20% of the new funds. We always try to keep it below that. The other proposals that were not funded were the Bradfield Center, ALACNIP, and then Jose and Sons Recycling. So that's showing you those. Mr. McLean had asked last year, and this next slide is just for you, Sam. You would always ask for a comparison from one year to the other. This is really just taking the same information and representing it, but at the end, the last two slides show you, the last two columns show you the amount of change and the beginning difference from one year to the change from one year to another, 1 year over the next. So you all have copies of the applications. I appreciate those who did attend earlier meetings. I think we got into more detail at that time, but I know many of the proponents are here this evening to talk about their requests and their allocations. So I will cede the floor. Yes?
Mr. President,
Mr. Law?
I do got one question. In the neighborhood assistance category, how much of this 133.5 is wages?
A large portion of it.
Of what number?
Approximately 80, I'd have to look that up for you. It's about 82,000 because that's someone with, that's someone who is a full-time employee who has been with us a significant period of time and is receiving full benefits.
So could you tell me what the rest is going towards?
That goes towards the specific projects such as the Care Academy, such as providing support for LACNIP, and we're doing some scholarships for the neighborhood training, the RNC. It goes for equipment for the tool shed and for the electronics and that kind of thing that are also available for use by neighborhood groups. It goes for membership in several organizations such as the Ohio CDC organization and some other neighborhood networking to provide contacts for our neighborhood groups. But there's a list of others. That's in the application that you should have. It has a listing of those things.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any further questions? Okay, we'll, is that all you have then, Amy? Okay. We'll open the floor. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the 2014-15 CDBG home dollar allocations? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and make your comments. Come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Linda Mack, Community Leader, 108 East High Street, Apartment 414. I had looked into some of this stuff somewhat, but I got in some trouble here with AEP, and this crime ring that I was stuck there in the middle of down there on 600 block East Eureka, they went over there and tore parts out of the furnace down there, and then so tried to sell it back to my nephew. So I had to use a heater. And so it ran the electric bill up. Then they come around, put a hole in the roof, and then I'd end up until part of the roof fell out upstairs. So I end up with a $1,000 bill. AEP says I pay it all at once, or they will not furnish me electric, or if anybody else in the house puts it in their name either. So I just wondering about that, and they want it all at once. And I'm on this low income, which I really shouldn't be. So I just wonder if there is any kind of solution to that.
Right now, with this program that we're talking about tonight, there is not, Linda. Okay? That's
Okay.
a separate issue.
It-
Okay?
Yeah, okay, it's always something that's, well, the opportunity, well, it's here, but it's not here. It's always, I constantly run into that kind of thing. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward? Just come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is James Ford. I'm coming on behalf of Bradfield Community Association, 550 South College Street, Lima, Ohio. The last time we were here, I addressed the council in reference to the application that we filled out for CBGD monies. Last year when we came forward, it was stated that our application wasn't accepted because it wasn't complete. So again, this year, we're coming forward, we had a complete application. We felt that everything was in proper order. But again, our request was denied. My question is, in looking at the funding and where it's going, is there any room for new applicants to file for the CBGD monies? Because looking at the front, I see that there are 4, but it seems to me that there would be room for new applicants to receive some of the funding, but it appears that in this 5-year plan, I don't see any room for new applicants to receive any funding. So my request is that, again, that the council review and reconsider this, because in a 5-year plan, if there are new applicants or if the monies are made available to the city, and the new applicants that come forward and they put in a lot of time and effort in what they're doing with hopes that they will be able to receive some of the funding, and then each year there seems to be the funding is going somewhere else. So my question is, or to ask the council perhaps to reconsider, and maybe if we're not getting all the funding, then a part of that, because we spend a lot of time, and what we're trying to do is become a part of the city family. At Bradfield, we're at a distance. We may not have all the financial funds that we need, but again, we're coming forth to the city and just wanting to be brought into the family and reconsider our proposal. And if not, it was stated that the information was in the HUD application. Each page that we went through and diligently looked at what the requirements are for the CBG monies, we felt that we fit in that category. And so, again, our efforts are clear. Our funding and the monies that we have at Bradfield is very transparent. If you look at our ability to handle these funds, it's very clear. Anyone can come in at any time, see where the money comes in from Bradfield and see where it's going. So we have a clear direction of what we're spending and what we're doing with the funds. So again, my request is ask for reconsideration.
I have a question for you. And I guess this is just my opinion.
Yes.
Okay? But historically, I don't believe that in CDBG monies that we have funded staff positions for outside agencies, okay? And I'm looking at your proposal. I guess one of the things that I had heard after the last meeting is that one of the key things that you folks are looking for is fitness equipment for a fitness room. Okay?
Yes.
I guess what I'm wondering, and I mean, that part of it, we've done some things in the past for, I believe, capital things, but we haven't done, wage and salary type things, okay? Does it do any good for us to look at this and make any amendment to provide a 50% match on that equipment?
I think that looking at the funding part of it, we just followed the application.
I understand.
Right.
I guess I should have said it. My take on it is there are a lot of things that, when you look at that application, when you look at all the guidelines, that probably meet the letter of it, okay?
Right.
But we don't, it qualifies, but historically, we haven't funded all of those things, okay? On top of that, the overriding, amount of dollars that are available has been in decline for several years, okay? And, I mean, I can remember at one time when these were up close to 1.5, 1.7 million. Okay, the amount of money coming from the federal government available for these programs has declined dramatically. Okay, so it does make it kind of difficult to work in new programs when there are some programs that have been working and are proven, okay, that do get refunded annually. Okay, but I'm just trying to, I mean, I had heard that one of the key things that did really fit in with what we've done and that we could do was the fitness equipment. And I'm just wondering, does that do any good?
I think for the people that participate in Bradfield's fitness program, yes. If you would, or the council would come over to Bradfield and take a look at the equipment we have, it's sufficient, but it's broken. There are some things that need to be repaired. And this is why we're coming forward to make this request. Now, there is, in looking at our application, all the things that they required for us to fill out, we fill those out. Now, as far as staffing part, we could do without that. We don't, but again, that's part of the application form. We just want to present an application full of the information that you need. There's always room for negotiation, but what I see here is that I don't see there is any room for new applicants for the CBG money. If you look at all the people that have received it in the past, it's been consistent. The new applicants, most of the new applicants that are outlined in red, they're the same people, or the new applicants have been denied. So what I'm saying is that if you have this money available and there's no room for new applicants, is that fair to the applicants that spend a lot of time and effort in trying to go through this matrix to get these things done and then come before the council and say that there's no funding? My question would be that if HUD made an adjustment and they said that there's no monies available, do they take the money off the top before you get it, or is it something that they send down to you saying that this year we're going to cut it back 15%? Did you know that prior to us getting this application? If so, then that's not a fair assessment to the applicants to go through that, because we're kind of being misled as far as what we're able to do.
And I understand what you're saying, and I understand how you arrive at that conclusion, okay? But yes, we do know the amount of dollars that we're going to be getting from the federal government before we start the process, okay? And, I mean, that's public knowledge, okay? Then we go through the process, which by law, we have to open up for new applicants, okay? And it's not, I guess, but filling out the application doesn't just guarantee you that you're going to get awarded, okay?
And I can see that, but looking at this, I don't see any room for any new applicants because all the new applicants have been denied. So I'm just saying that if there's money coming in,
I would take exception to that, okay?
it's just what I see on that
Simply
paperwork.
I understand, but last year, United Way came, and they had a proposal for a grant writer, okay? Which was theoretically going to generate more dollars into the community, okay? It was funded last year, and it's not funded this year. There was room to give it an opportunity, okay? And for whatever reason, it's not being recommended for funding this year, okay? Yes, as dollars dwindle, the opportunity also reduces, but it doesn't preclude new applicants, okay? It's frustrating, I get it, okay? We wrestle with this thing every year, okay? And I've seen meetings on this topic go for 4 or 5 hours, hammering over $500 allocations, okay? So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I know it's frustrating, but
We're just,
it is where it's at, okay? And we're confined by the number of dollars that HUD makes available to us, that our Congress makes available to HUD, okay?
President?
So, Mr. Lowe?
If I could, the statement was just made that we don't normally, we haven't in the past given for staffing or money towards individuals running programs. That's why I asked the question about neighborhood assistance. You just, I guess, got a number, 82,000. Then we got another, and this isn't the front on them, but then you got Road State that comes up every year, gets $7,000, and the majority of that is going to the individual that's teaching the class. I asked that last year, and that's what I was told. So if it's not, then somebody told a fib in between. But what I'm saying, we just showed right here on this paper that we are paying for wages of
Justin.
individuals working.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes, sir.
We have covered wages in the city. We have not covered wages for outside agencies.
And that's
Okay.
what we need the clarification. We should.
That I'm clarifying that.
Okay.
Okay, and I appreciate your question. But yes, we have funded staff positions here, but we have not done it on outside agencies. And I'll let Amy clarify the pathways.
I'm
Yeah.
looking for that now in the application.
I still got a question on that. And if not, just because we have it, doesn't mean it's not possible. Period. It's what we want to do. It's what we want to do as council. And I just pray that we're not looking at, it is the Bradfield Community Center. And I'm praying that we are looking at the mission of the building. How many lives have went through there, how many kids have been changed, how many great people have come up out of this building. And the individuals that are there, they're requiring staffing so they can do a better job within this community. They're the individuals that we're saying no right now to. And I think that it is totally unfair that we only got a couple people that make the decision on this. We can sit and propose all day long.
Which is why I raised it as potentially funding part of their request, Mr. Lowe.
On exercise equipment. They need more than that. They need more than that.
On the
We fi-
pathways, Amy?
On pathways, there is, I stand corrected, Mr. Lowe, in their request, it was $6,384 for personnel, but it is matched. They matched that with another $6,000. They also asked for approximately $600 worth of supplies, and that is matched with over
Okay.
another
And,
$2,000.
and watch this, Ms. Odom.
Excuse me?
Watch this. You just stated they make $6,300 for personnel. They're having the classes within the Bradfield that is asking for the help. Okay, this is what I'm saying. We can't keep holding, and we've asked for reports of how many individuals out of this class is actually coming back to Lima and working and staying in Lima. Okay, and we never get a full, true answer. And
That's
every
not
year,
true.
yes, it is true, because
You've received reports, Mr. Lowe, I'm sorry to interrupt. you, sir.
in Lima, who actually stayed in Lima. I've been in the Bradfield. I've been there when the classes were taking place. It had started out with 25, 30 people, and by the end of the session, there may be 6. Okay?
We've gotten reports,
We've-
Mr. Lowe, from
okay.
them.
At the end of the day, I've seen it from my eyes. At the end of the day, it dwindles down. We're handing them 7,000, and 63 is going for staff, whether they got a match or not. So we can't say, and I'm glad that you clarified, we can't say that we haven't done it, because we've done it. That's my point. So we can, as council, we can give it to them. We can say this is what we want. We need to start investing in the individuals, the community centers, and businesses that are trying to do something here in Lima. We're taking care. That's it, Mr. President.
All right.
Mr. President,
Mr. Glenn?
yes, I have a couple of things. Mr. Ford, I'd like to apologize for not returning your call. My wife had got sick real bad there, and she's doing okay now. But like we had said at the meeting, though, when you guys came up there, you guys been here, Bradford Center been historian there. I brought up, I'm trying to talk, whoever talking back there, but we've been at it, though. Like I brought up, the organization who continue creating organization like LACA. We continue, why, like I brought up the last meeting, why can't LACA put somebody in that position? Why can't they put somebody in that position? It's not a HUD, I checked with HUD, that is not a mandatory for HUD, for that creation of counseling. Why can't, that, well, that's what, that lady, she told me so, I'll find out then it's different. We does not have to be on that 5-year plan. It's up to us to change that plan, okay? Other cities, which I checked with, you are in a CBG area. Bradford Center's in the 6th Ward. And I'll bring this up again, they know it. You won't get a red cent, one for the 5th and 6th Ward, okay? Okay, that's the urban areas, and that's who get to reward the money. That's where the money had to be established at. You know, just like I look at the parks, Martin Luther King get $2,000 just to show that there, while everybody else get 13, 36, 10, 19, 15, 80,000. Okay, stuff like that. Because we got the earmark in the urban area. When we gave money to other area, they had to continue working on everything in the urban area. So why not? Why not? You know, and then it make people think that a lot of folks say, why can't we go to the dog and pony show? It's already been earmarked out already. While we continue trying to motivate people saying, come out, try your luck, come out. It's like trying your luck, and this money already earmarked to the urban development area. This considers an urban development area. Yes, we changed it around. Yes, we got the Baxter Street considered a 6th Ward. All the other areas came in as a 6th Ward now. But it's still considered as an urban area. And that's what I heard from other people that get the money. They make sure first it goes in the urban areas first, then what's left over. Yes, we're using this money for different organizations that we feel will make it right. Yes, we have to make a decision where it's going to go. We feel our money will spend right, but we forget about the people that been here too. Is it fair? No, it's not fair. You know, just like Jose and them did. They continued fighting the battle when they was denied. They came to my house with the nonprofit number. They say it's nonprofit. And then Amy had to come up and tell them that they eligible. And that's what we got, people like that. And that we're going to do, we'll send a message out saying that, hey, we don't care. But city council have control of this. It's up to us. It's up to this panel here to make that decision, which way the money go. You know, and it's something we had to do every year. I've been on council for a long time. We see the same thing go on. But we got to make a decision sometimes, say, no, we're going to step aside and look at this. You know, we gave United Way, came up, we gave it to them. And it was a newcomer. And I've seen organizations that have been here 5 or 6 times, never got a dime. Never got a dime. And good organization, good pioneer organizations, just like Bradford Center. But I'm saying, we got to get our mindset set different. If we're going to make this city grow, we're going to make the city get back to we got to go back to the basics for this city to grow, for people to stay here. But this kind of carrying on we're doing now, saying we take this side, we take that side. There's no sides here. We all live in this city together. And we need to look at different things, other obligations. We need to look at your application, see what we can do. You know, but if we had somebody there, we find out what we can do, we give them money. You know, and you've been here all the time, trying to find out how you can save the center. You guys never put in much thing. Y'all just came then now saying, hey, we need it. And that's great that you're trying to save a historian center that older than a lot of places, been existing in Lima, they're getting the money. And that's what I said the last go round. So, yeah, we're going to look at it. I'll look at it all of them. We still got time to look at a lot of stuff. We don't make a vote till next week, next city council. And I'm turning mine upside down, writing notes down. I'll be calling and seeing what's going on too. So we still got opportunity to make some decisions, city council. Thank you.
Is there anybody else got any questions for Mr. Ford? All right. Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak to the issue of the 2014-2015 consolidated plan?
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Good.
My name is Maria Williams. My residence is 1215 Freeman Avenue, Lima, Ohio, 45005. I'm here representing the people of Lima, the people of Ohio, people of our great nation, and particularly Jose and Sons Recycling Incorporated, which applied for a portion of the block grants that were trickled down by HUD. I did get a courtesy call from our Community Development Director, Ms. Amy Odom, after contacting Mr. Johnston in Washington, D.C., and also Mr. Hendershot in Columbus to gain clarification on what we're applying for. We do have in front of us financial statements of our sustainability. And just to reiterate, that we are eligible as a solid waste disposal facility, and our acquisition to purchase equipment does fall in line with the national objective of particularly aiding persons that are low and moderate income. The majority of the people that we serve are low and moderate income individuals seeking not only to help clean the environment, but also gain monies in recycling. We also, I believe, are in line with the national objective of eliminating blight and slum. If we were to get the purchase of this equipment, if I can go back, in 2008, we purchased the land that the building is on through the City Land Bank's program, which is aimed to eliminate slum and blight. So we were able to clean up that area, which was once called the jungle, right behind Mr. Miles. He was one of the oldest patrons in the neighborhood who's seen the transition in the neighborhood and the community development that we've accomplished. Not just our hands, the staff, but numerous neighbors and the public that has been bringing in the scrap to our location. But we also want to acquire all the other blighted neighborhood, blighted lots that surround our business. There's a great huge one that covers across the street. There's several other ones on the other side. I mean, we're pretty much on all four corners surrounded by blight and slum. I believe that we do meet the criteria, and being a targeted area, when HUD determines which local communities get these funds, they said Lima is a targeted area and are entitled to these funds. So I'm advocating that since we are in a targeted area, since we do meet the national objective of not only aiding low and moderate income persons, but also the elimination of blight and slum, as well as job creation, as well as environmental protection, as well as education, and we can go on and on and on. And it takes a consensus, all of us coming on one accord to say that, yes, we are in line with what these federal dollars are supposed to be going to. So with that being said, I do have the documentation that Mrs. Odom have requested that we provide to you for reconsideration. Now that our eligibility issue had been resolved and clarified, we have our tax exemption, we have our state certification, we have financial numbers from 2008 till 2013 showing us to be a financially sustainable establishment. Trying to think of what else I wanted to say. Our Constitution reads that we, the people of the state of Ohio, grateful to Almighty God for our freedom to secure its blessings and promote our common welfare. I'm asking that you will do your duty to ensure that the people acquire the blessings that we all come together on a common welfare to invest in small business, to invest in the blighted and slummed communities that I'm sure none of you guys probably live in. I also want to touch base not only for Jose and Sons Recycling, but for the Bradfield Center, for LACNIP, and for LACA, who are the four that are not receiving funding. I disagree with Ms. Odom that there's a lack of funding. My consensus is that your administration every year gets 20%. HUD allows that up to 20%. So I believe that you have some flexibility to amend just how much money your administration is getting. If you look at the dollars that your administration is getting, which is, I'm questioning who is a part of that administration. Are you guys a part of that?
Negative.
Negative, okay, but it is city staff members that are administration, correct? Which are, I'm quite certain, not low and moderate income people. So if we're gonna be in line with the national objective, we're supposed to be helping people who are in poverty. I don't think that the administration is in poverty. I don't think that they're in the low and moderate income brackets. So for you to finalize a proposal to give this money to them, it's not in line with the national objective. It's not helping the people of Lima. It's not creating jobs for those that are already impoverished. It's not making a difference in their life. So I would like for you to reconsider where these dollars are going and whose pockets they're going into. And it's well documented. That 20% can go down to 10%. Even with 10%, I calculated that the city can grant all four of these proposals, can meet all those proposals that have been denied, and yet still have $105,000 to work with. So I'm asking you from the heart, as a public servant of this state, of this city, of this nation, of this planet, to serve the people that you're supposed to serve and not serve yourself, not serve the ones that are already advantaged, but serve the ones that are disadvantaged. The councilman opened, and we are all well aware that there's blood on our streets. The curbs that you spend so much money on are stained with the blood of our youth. When is we going to wake up, people? And it's real. We see it every day. We're not asking for money to put in our pocket. We're a nonprofit. We could have been for profit from day one. But we said, no, we want to go to the south end of Lima. We want to make lives better for ourselves and for the people that live there. We want to meet and beat competitor prices and give those that come in with their recyclables the highest amount of money we can give them. And whatever we turn around, we like to seed into Boys and Girls Club of Allen County, the food bank, the men's shelter. These are the businesses that you will help by helping us. Not only Jose and Sons, but those that when we generate these dollars, when the public brings in these tons of solid waste every year that you don't see on the streets, that you don't see in your neighborhood, because it's the bums, quote unquote, that are bringing them in. It's the low-income families that don't have a job in Allen County because we're one of the lowest in the state of unemployment. So they resort to scrapping. Some even are resorting to criminal activity just to get by. We know that because now we're funded by Homeland Security to document every single transaction now. So we have a way to let you know who we serve. We have the Homeland Security database that is going to be effective July. You'll have documentation of every person that comes in there, right at your fingertips. And if we was to get this equipment, not only is it going to help us keep our doors open, retain the jobs for those that are there that are non-salaried, that are working hard for us to build up this money, to create more jobs and start paying individuals and hire people that come in with their scrap. Educate the youth about the elements that are not going to be here forever. And we have to act now to preserve for the next generation. You want to build Allen County strength? Promote youth services, promote educational services, fund small business. I thank you for your time and your consideration. I pray, as it says in our state constitution, by the hand of Almighty God, that He will move upon your hearts to make an adjustment to your proposal and the funds that are being allocated to persons that are not low and moderate income. We cannot, there's no excuse for that. And I even asked Washington and Columbus to be a part of these hearings, to come in and do an assessment of the practices of local government, to ensure that they're in line with what the federal government is putting these funds. So I thank you for your time. I think that there's enough money for everybody to go around. Jesus Christ fed 5,000 with 5 fish and 2 loaves of bread and had some left over. And when we spell unity, it's you and I. Those are the first 3 words. You and I. I invite each of you to come. I invite the public to come to Jose and Sons Recycling Incorporated. Let's work together. Let's build Allen County. Let's build our state. Let's build our nation. Let's preserve for the next generation. And we can do this if you give us the money that was supposed to be for us. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I have the paperwork here, if that can be provided, President, for further review, our financial statements and
Technically, the application process closes on the date that is set in the schedule. And
Yeah.
speaking with Ms. Williams, who stated that at the time the application was submitted, it was missing some critical financial data as well as questions about the eligibility. I stated that normally, because it would be unfair to reopen the application at this point, it would really be up to council if you wish to receive and review those documents.
Mr. President,
Mr. Lowe?
I would like to see it, if she would be able to give it to us.
everything that's in here are copies. I apologize to conserve trees. We've only brought 1 set. So I'm asking that you
Then those
please.
should be filed with Ms. Elder.
Okay. But again, we extend our invitation to please come and see what we have in operation and the possibilities of how much more we can do together. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Is there anybody else who would like to address the issue of the 2014-2015 CDBG home allocations? Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak to the 2014-15 CDBG home allocations? Third and final call, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the 2014-2015 CDBG home allocations? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed.
Mr. President?
Yep.
If you wish to continue to discuss allocations or changes in allocations, you need to keep the public hearing.
Okay, we'll leave it open. Is there any comments from council members?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes, I had a couple things there. And Amy, you said if any changes being made, we need to keep the public hearing going.
Correct, meaning that any changes to the dollars need to be made in a public forum, so therefore, once you,
Do you want to make any amendments,
you want to make
basically?
an amendment?
Yes, but I'm,
And you left it open, so if you want
right,
to
but
do
I'm
that-
saying, no, we never did this before.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
We have? Okay, this is new to me, because I'm,
Oh, absolutely.
okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna make some amendments on some things there. Well, you caught me off guard there. I was reading some stuff over. Okay. Need some time here. Okay.
Could I excuse myself for 1 second?
Yeah.
I was going to Public Works there. And, I was looking at reinforcement tennis court at College Street Park. My question is that, why can't that be done by the high schools? They use that a lot. Why would they put up $80,000 for that? And, yep, it's on page, 17, City Parks and Works, $80,000 re-furnish the tennis courts of College Street.
Yeah. They weren't
That's-
funded.
yeah.
Mr. Glenn,
What?
they weren't funded.
Oh, no, wait a minute, I'm
What-
looking at the wrong.
What changes would you make
I made
to
it-
this sheet
I'm looking
right
at the
here?
wrong one there. I was looking at them numbers there because, okay, they wasn't funded there, okay, my fault. I was not looking at the right
It's
paper
okay.
there. No, I was just, looking at a lot of numbers here while it was going on. And, I wrote down my stuff here.
Mr. Glenn,
Yes,
may I
yeah,
take a minute?
you can take a minute, yeah.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
thank you. Ms. Odom, if you could please,
Yeah, I forgot about-
on the Jose and Sons recycling, they are requesting what again, publicly, what are they requesting?
The request from Jose and Sons is $32,000 for an end loader.
And then Bradfield, along with the equipment and painting and fixing up of the training exercise room, they wanted a part-time instructor and also to provide meals and things at functions,
Correct.
and all those are permissible?
Actually, purchasing food with CDBG is rather tricky. We don't fund it because you then have to be able to document that each person that was fed was participating in a CDBG eligible activity more than just marketing, meaning it has to be an educational function or something else. Because it is very often tied to marketing, it's very difficult for us to track, so we do not fund that. What we would recommend is usually something that is tangible and permanent, such as the equipment. When we're working with the roads program, again, they have a significant, even though we are paying for salary time, they have to then document the income, the age of all the persons that they contact, the ethnicity of all the persons they contact. They have to give us reports on who served, all that kind of thing. It becomes very detailed. So if we're going to be providing money for instructors, they're going to have to track all of the demographic information on who they serve. It's one of the things that we'd also have to do with that. And of course, all the hours and specific activities.
The LACNIP was for a boiler and air conditioning for the Lacknip Resource Center,
Yes,
which is city-owned
yes,
property.
yes.
So it would get a little gray area as far as using CDBG money to improve a city property that is under a lease through Lacknip.
My understanding is that Lackland has what would be called a triple net lease, basically are responsible for everything on that property, but it is a city-owned property, and it would then possibly have to be reviewed by HUD, because we're then making improvements to a public facility. So it becomes, again, a difficult activity to undertake with CDBG.
And then finally, and they're here tonight, United Way. At the last hearing, the committee that Counselor Glenn chairs, we requested a list of the agencies that came through the program. I have not received it. In their application, they stated around 20 agencies came through, and we wanted to see the list of those agencies. And I'm a little puzzled why you didn't take the opportunity to speak tonight or provide us with that list.
Mike Hayden from United Way. We can provide it, but I don't have any direct word.
Well, the director was here at the last hearing, and he was
Okay.
specifically directly asked,
Okay.
not by one committee member, but by at least two, that we would like to see the
It can
list.
be provided.
Well,
too.
now was
We
the
had
time.
Actually, we had 31 participants from 24 organizations.
That's what I was
Attend the
hoping to see
workshops.
tonight. Mr. President, I would like to fund portions of these applications. Some I'm a little on the fence with on, I don't want to jeopardize the rest of the agencies and needs by jeopardizing, what the spokesperson said, of the administrative cost. That's something greatly to consider, the 19%, they didn't ask for 20, they're asking for 19. I would be willing to entertain, and I've made some calls on this earlier before this meeting, concerning our inspectors, that possibly a position, they fund 3 out of this and 1 out of general fund, was my understanding at the last hearing. You fund 3 inspectors and 1 out of general fund.
Rita, you provided a breakdown, I think, on that. 'Cause I want to be absolutely accurate. We do fund 2 solely out of CDBG. The third one is funded partially out of home and partially out of CDBG.
No,
No,
not the property maintenance
property
inspectors.
maintenance, no.
We only have, if you're saying property maintenance inspectors, we only have 3 property maintenance inspectors. But we use our Chase Falke, who is also our housing inspector, is also used as a property maintenance inspector. That's why some of his salary is split between home and CDBG. Maybe that was the clarification.
So you have no property maintenance inspectors paid from the general fund itself?
I have 1 property maintenance inspector paid by the general fund, that is the supervising inspector. I have 2 inspectors that are paid fully out of CDBG. I have a third who splits his time between CDBG and home.
Yeah, and that's what Mrs. Adams was saying.
Right.
You have 2 property maintenance inspectors paid with CDBG funds.
Right.
And 1 paid with general fund dollars.
Right.
And 1.
There was one that split, so I wanted to make clear that we have a full count of personnel.
For part of the beginning of the discussion, I think that's what we're all here tonight. Like I said, I have some reservations on some parts of the applications on what's permissible or allowable, as I don't want to jeopardize some of these other activities that are being funded. And if there can be some give and take on those applicants that are receiving nothing tonight, and at the hearing that we've had and the training we've had and the review that Counselor Glenn requested of this process this year, did not see anyone there to go through this. And this money, I want to emphasize, you will get at the end of next year. You don't get it starting out in October of this year. You get it at the end of next year, after you have filed reports, documented successes and percentages that you claim in the application, that you will serve and you will improve. Those reports have to be filed starting in October through the end of next September. Once that has been achieved, and I hope you all success,
It is a reimbursement activity, so it doesn't necessarily wait to the end of the year. But they have to expend their own funds first, they have to document they did it in compliance with the grant, and then we fund them.
like if they bring in an invoice showing that they bought that piece of equipment,
Correct,
then they can be reimbursed. But
Correct.
they first have to spend their own.
correct.
Okay.
We don't front the money.
So, that's part of this process. So going forward, to have the money up front to begin with, I would be willing to entertain and throw out there for discussion and to get things started, moving an inspector to general fund and taking that salary and see how much of this we can fund and open up to other suggestions.
Second.
Second it.
The motion, the second, is to reduce the CDBG administration line, correct?
No,
No,
No.
no,
it
No.
would have been out of would have to come out of.
general.
Property maintenance.
property maintenance.
Yeah.
And what would that amount be? The motion, the second, is to reduce it by the amount of one salary. How much would that be?
Mr. President, I would request clarification on the motion that it not just be the salary, but the associated fringe benefits that go along with that position.
Yes,
With that in mind, if we're looking at the two full-time property maintenance inspectors, you're looking anywhere between, with salaries and fringes, between 64 and 68,000
Yes, each.
for
right,
each of those positions.
right.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Bartel. You know, I had, like I said, I had had discussions earlier in the week, or end of last week. And, because when I looked at this, at first I was thinking just moving the fringes to general fund. Leaving the salary alone, but just moving the fringes to general fund, you know. And in speaking with the auditor and with Ms. Odom and waiting on his report, which I do have here, the salaries, base salary between the two, which is between 40 and 44,000. The health insurance for both of those is 17,500 each. The PERS between both of them is between 5,800 and 6,300 each. Medicare is between 593 to 644. So with all those totaled, the complete salary, as I will amend my motion, would be, as he said, between $64,747.91 to $68,827.92. And I'm asking that one of those be moved to general fund to include health insurance, PERS, Medicare, for auditing purposes, or, you know, payroll and you know, to keep the records clear, so we're not mixing and matching. Because originally, I just wanted to take the fringes away of all of them and put it in to the general fund. And I feel that this way we're not hurting the curb and street program, the park program, and the home improvement, home loans, and counseling, and with our general fund being in the shape that it's in, this being the last of the 5 years, that's my proposal and my motion.
You need to amend, you say you amended.
I amended it to include all the fringes.
Okay.
Mr. President? Mr. McLean?
I truly believe that the property maintenance is part of this proposal because it is to clean up our blight. I propose that we look at the administration cost. I think we should look at the percentages of each one of them. Because the property maintenance people are the people that are out there on the front lines trying to keep our city looking very good. They're the ones that are out inspecting those homes.
Mr. McLean, I appreciate your comments, but I disagree in principle. I guess I've got a couple of questions. Number one, Ms. Adams, what level of funding do you propose to provide with dollars that are moved? Do you have a recommendation?
Well, of the Bradfield Center, the exercise equipment and the improvement to the room that they would put in would run around $7,000. So for that line item, I'm looking at, the $7,000.
Okay.
Jose and Sons, I'm looking at the full $32,000 to buy that equipment, and they bring in the request or the invoice. If it's less than that, fine. But it's not gonna be any more than that. LACNIP, I personally feel that the city should pay for that improvement and not take any money away from this. It's still our building. And the grant specialists, originally I was not willing to support it this year, as I did last year, and move funds as chairman of the committee to do that, and took it away from curbs. But when we asked for a list of agencies, and not to see it tonight, and not to have a discussion, I'm still not inclined to support that. So I guess I'm looking at $39,000.
Okay.
That's just open for discussion. It's just to start it rolling.
I just wanted to know which way you were heading with it.
Mr. President,
Ms. Miles?
if we're looking at making those changes to 39,000, and we're saying that we're wanting the offset will be still in property maintenance, which is equating to two people at 70,000, at being $140,000. So I'm not understanding
No.
the fringe and benefit.
Just moving one.
So we're looking at $70,000.
64
So-
to 68.
Well, I'm used to rounding numbers up. It's easier to talk when they're rounded up here. 70,000 compared to the 39. So why are we giving out 39, but on the other side, we're taking 70,000 out of the city budget? I guess I don't agree with that.
Okay.
To me, that they should equal each other.
All right.
So with
Okay.
that said, I would like to propose, if we're gonna still take 70,000 out of the budget, that the difference should fall with Bradfield. If we're, either way, if we give 39, 39 should come out of the budget as a whole.
Okay. I'm just going to say this, okay? Number one, I think that the property maintenance, as Councilor McLean stated, needs to remain funded. When you look at the allocations, I'll just be honest with you. I see less impact on the total request. I'm looking at the wrong column, I apologize. I have a problem with taking that out of property maintenance. Now, we're only funding street and curb reconstruction at $237,000, am I correct?
Correct.
It's 265.
265.
They have a carryover of, yeah,
There's a carryover.
some
The green column.
reprogramming of 22,490.
Yep.
Mr. President, the only other possibility would be if we give Bradfield 15 and go ahead and give Jose 32, that's 47, and that 47 would be done into the administrative part. That percentage would come down to maybe like 17 or 18 versus 19. Flow that through administrative cost. And that should probably, that won't even be that big of a difference. If you look at $47,000, that would flow through administrative and make that something less than 19%. Just another possibility.
Well, I'm also looking at this, you know, we had 52, what was the allocation last year for the police support services?
52,
What was it last year?
52,076.
52076, 52076.
It was,
Mr. President,
Just a minute, please. I guess what I'm saying is there was $22,000 in there to be reprogrammed. What was their allocation?
They received what they requested. They requested 52,000.
What did they request last year that resulted in $22,000 being left over?
They, I believe it was, sorry, I just misplaced my sheet. It was a similar amount, but they had had a slow staffing period, so those funds were not expended.
they had one off that was, had surgery for a long period of time.
Should you further explain that they had a slow staffing period?
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I understand where Counselor McLean's coming from. Like I said, this is just the beginning of a discussion. I too am strong advocate of the inspectors. I think they do a wonderful job. Originally, as I said earlier, I wanted to move their health insurance, their PERS, their Medicare to general fund. Leave their salaries in CDBG. But move those items over there, and we're still looking at, for one position, 23,700, about 24 something for, you know, so we take it, from those two inspectors, we're still looking at, you know, 40-some thousand into general fund.
Well,
And leave their salaries
there's
alone.
another way you can do it, okay?
Sure.
And that
I'm
is
open.
just take, you know, 39,000 is what you need. You can take one of those salaries and split it 60% general fund, 40% CDBG.
Mr. President, short answer is yes.
Yeah.
Long answer is, I would really prefer to do that 30, whatever the percentage is, of their total compensation
That's what I'm
cost.
talking about.
So if
Okay.
it's 60/40, then it's 60% of their salary
Total.
and fringes.
It's easier to go.
Yeah. Otherwise, it'd be an administrative nightmare.
Exactly.
Okay, 64,000 times 60% is 38.4. Okay? So maybe it's 61%, but it gets you the 39,000.
And that's
I'm
just,
just,
yeah, and I can live with that, but, you know, as other counselors, I mean, maybe they want.
I guess what I'm
more.
pointing out is it doesn't have to be the whole salary and fringes.
No.
You can apportion it, okay? I mean, we do that with some of the streets department jobs, I think, that are funded part out of
Utility.
general and 309, okay? So,
That's great.
Mr. President?
Clerk, would you please restate that?
No, because we're not done yet.
Okay.
Okay? Right now, it's about 61% of one salary. Okay?
60% of general fund remainder to CDBG.
Correct.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lowe?
Hope I do this right. I would like to make a proposal that,
We have a motion on the
There's a motion on the floor, so
Yeah.
just under discussion, talk about what you want to talk about.
okay. What I would like to see is this, since the inspector has came up, I would like to see about 33,000 come out of that,
Come out of where?
out of the property maintenance. And that would fund Jose. And I would like to see also 19,000 come out of neighborhood assistance. 2,000,
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Yep, I'm following you.
Okay, 19,000 out of neighborhood assistance. I would like to see 2,000 come out of career pathway. And I would like to see 16,000 come out of CDBG administration. And that would give $37,000 to the Bradfield Center in full.
I don't think all of their,
Qualified.
doesn't all qualify.
What does not qualify from the
It
Bradfield?
will qualify, but it's gonna be very hard to document for
Food.
them where that goes to each and every
My
individual.
recommendation is leaving food and marketing activities off the table because
Right.
it becomes very difficult to manage and very difficult to document. My suggestion, because not only for them, but let's be honest, our CDBG department is me.
I
If I'm
understand that.
managing the individual reports for each one of these, it would be a high likelihood that the level of monitoring that you need for the kinds of marketing and food and simple kinds of things that are difficult to deal with are better left off the table and better deal with the larger equipment.
Okay, I'm not questioning you how you do your job, but actually, how much time do you spend on CDBG a year? As far as making sure? Seriously, like an hour, just throw hours out of it.
The answer is
For a year.
not enough.
Okay. If I can, Mr. President, I seen the rep from the Bradfield raise her hand. Could she clarify something before I say something else?
I'm Cheryl Youngblood on the program committee at Bradfield. And as far as documentation, we currently, whenever we have any programs at Bradfield, we do document everyone that comes in. We have a sign-in sheet, we document, because it is a requirement currently that we do that. So I know what you're talking about is much more. So, but we do have the capacity to do that, and we would do that. And one of the reasons that we ask when we talked about another person as far as being salaried, so that we would be able to continue to do that at all hours that we have a program in the facility. If we had our senior program, our senior fitness or wellness, then we would be able to document those people that come in, what we do with them, what the improvement would be, how they qualify and all of that. So that was one of the reasons for asking for that
Okay.
additional person.
And piggybacking off of what Councilor Adams said, this is why I'm saying this, she made it perfectly clear that we understood, this isn't for, this, you're not getting nothing right now, this is for.
Absolutely.
So you have a year to prove yourself, and the documentation will be there. So,
Yes.
Thank you. Again, just for clarification, it's 19,000 out of neighborhood assistance,
Hang on, slow down. Say that again.
19,000 out of the neighborhood assistance, 2,000 out of the career pathway, and I'm only saying that because they have matching funds. 16,000 out of the CDBG administration, which is a total of 37,000.
Well, I would disagree with you, Mr. Lowe.
Well.
No, because there's an easier way.
Okay. And that would be,
take the higher position of the property maintenance out of there and put it, we're still gonna have the job, it's gonna be, the work's still gonna get done, it's gonna be put in the general fund.
The 61%?
No,
Okay,
put 100%
yeah.
of the higher paying position with fringes, it's gonna be pretty darn close to the 69 that you're looking for,
That would work also. You're correct.
okay? I'm just, it would create an administrative nightmare.
To separate so many.
Yeah.
Understood.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taylor.
if we are going to make these moves, and I know it's been said like 2 or 3 times now, that the money is up front from these organizations and it's a reimbursement.
Correct.
Are both these organizations, do you have the wherewithal to do that?
Got it.
That you would expend that money, I want to hear from them, not you, Jesse. Would you have the wherewithal to expend that money up front, anticipating a reimbursement if everything qualifies? So I'd like to hear from Bradfield and from Jose and Sons if that's your understanding and you're prepared to do that.
You want to make,
The question is, these funds, the understanding is, these funds, you have to spend the money first out of your own resources. Then you bring documentation to the city that you have spent the money, that it was done in a way that qualifies for the reimbursement. Do you have the financial wherewithal to make those expenditures, sustain the cash outlay, and then bring the receipts in, basically, in paperwork into the city to get that reimbursement? This is not a grant, excuse me, this is not a grant that come November, we write you a check for $32,000 and you bring us the receipts. Am I correct, Amy?
Correct.
That's not the way it works, okay? Sir?
I mean, Jose San is ready for that. You know, whatever situation they come to it, you know. As long as you guys help us, that's all we need.
no,
That's the question, thank you.
Same question.
Same question to Bradfield.
Marcus Cox, I'm coming represent Bradfield. We currently would have funds for to match possibly the equipment and the funds for the senior luncheon as it pertains to our outreach to health education to our seniors. Again, the senior luncheon is an opportunity to hook into social aspects and the health and educational aspects to our seniors and the community. That was explicitly stated in the grant.
Excuse me, we have, sorry, Dr. Cox, we have a speaker, I'd like to hear him, okay?
Okay. And so that was explicitly, it's detailed in that, in the application process. But again, our reason for coming to ask you for that is that we have financial constraints and we'd like to be able to use the funds to do more and to make sure we document accordingly. So the short and skinny of the question is, when you get straight down to the numbers in the books, which I'm responsible for, is that we can do the equipment, we can do the funds, so that's approximately 7 to 10 that we would be physically able to do within the next year before we got reimbursed. And that's just the hard facts.
Mr. President, and that was the point of my question, and I appreciate
that.
the answer and
Right.
the response, because
come here.
it's not going to do us any good to move this money around and not have you be able to
Right.
make use of it.
Appreciate that.
We will have penalized other
Many
parts of the
people,
program. And I fully support, you know, the portion that you can cover, the equipment and the fixing up of the room. I have no issue with that at all. And if that's what you can accomplish in the next year, I think that's what city council should consider. So that we're not, you know, we're pulling together and putting this larger pot together, and if we don't utilize it, we really haven't accomplished what we're after.
I agree.
That's where, if I could, Ms. Brown, that's where I go back to the 39,000 of the 7,000 roughly
32.
for Bradfield and
32 for
the Jose thing, and Sons request. Just, if they need to go out and get a loan and go out and purchase that equipment, but come in and show us the receipt, invoice for that equipment, then at such time they will get reimbursed. And my other statements stand for the other programs.
Okay, now I want to go back to Dr. Cox and clarify something. The amount that is listed, if I'm looking at the right page, 6,250 is listed on the fitness equipment.
Yeah.
And then the senior recreational social events, is that the other item? Correct? Okay, so we're looking at 12,000, call it 13,000, that realistically should be made available if it's approved by council, and you can realistically utilize, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And have the funds.
And pay for it up front, seeking reimbursement from the city at the appropriate time. After the activities are completed, and you have the paperwork documenting that, that's when you would submit for a reimbursement. Are you able to do that in that sequence?
Yeah, okay. The number I come up with, and I'm not gonna break it down to X and $50, the number I come up with is about 13,000. Okay? So, we're not gonna drill this down to the pennies, I'm sorry. It's a exercise in futility.
Mr. President, I guess having heard all this, Counselor Adams had made the original motion.
And I amended it to include the fringes per the auditor's suggestion.
But I guess what your original motion was is more than we need for the two items we've just discussed. We're now looking at like 45,000. And I guess my comment is, I would not pull them more than 45,000 if we have to come up with a percentage.
Yeah.
To come up with that amount. That's, the motion should, I would suggest it be amended to accomplish that.
The percentage that would equal but not exceed 48,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Second.
Wait,
You cannot, it was not a
Oh.
motion, there's nothing to second.
Oh, we got
This
said
is
she
still
made
under
motion.
discussion,
Oh,
okay?
I thought she said motion.
Is there consensus among council that Bradfield should be funded at $13,000?
Yes.
Is there anybody who objects to it?
I don't think about reject.
Okay. We're going to take a short break because some of us, and I'm sure some of you, need to use facilities, but we're going to take a 5-minute recess. So council is in agreement with 13,000 on Bradfield, okay? The other question is on Jose and Sons. Is there any conversation or discussion on that?
Mr. President,
Mr. Lowe?
I just want to make clarification that they do understand that they will be able to purchase the equipment soon.
I already told you.
I-
We're ready.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
All right.
Mr. President.
My second
Oh,
question,
I'm sorry. Mr.
Mr. President, to the Bradfield Center for clarification. What are you able to do? So we can have a permanent number. Is it still at the 13 or what?
I think that's what they already stated.
I just want to make sure.
I want to ask for a point of clarification. One of the Bradfield, other board members overheard, when the reimbursements, or when the invoices need to be given as far as the reimbursements. I think Mr. Tom from Fourth Ward, Tippin, sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, said it was all at once, but then Amy made a clarification that it didn't have to be all at once. It can be given at subsequent time frames. So what subsequent time frames can that be given so that we can, I need to make clarifications before I make a full statement.
No, I appreciate the question. And when I made that comment, I probably was looking at the Jose and Sons first, because that was 32,000 for one item.
Right.
Which in their case it would, and I'll let Amy explain.
Right, the reimbursement process, or the funding procedure is, first of all, these funds, after all this discussion is had here, and I've placed this up here, that the last time that council really has a chance to change any of these allocations is on June 7th. We then must take the slate on July 21st, the council meeting, and approve it up or down, all the things that have been approved at the earlier meeting. So we have one more go at this on the 7th. This is then sent to HUD. HUD, I have to have it in by the end of July. They will not send us funds, they will not allow us to draw down funds until October. So, program year does not start till October 1, 2014. Once the program year begins, as you expend funds, send us the invoices, we will reimburse you. So it depends upon what your program, as obviously each program is designed differently. Rose, as an example, sends us quarterly at the end of each semester, at the end of each class, or like LACA at the end of each class, will send us a bill, they will document everything they've done with all the demographic information on it, and then we will then reimburse them. So that's the way that works.
So it would be safe to say as frequently as monthly? Okay.
Well, with that, I think the board definitely can say that we can do the whole amount then. We can do the full 39,000.
The full 39?
Yes.
Including food.
Yep.
The food is not eligible.
Well, you're asking for 37,852.
Well,
38.
we were rounding off. Everybody's doing a rounding off thing.
I'm looking for it.
Minor.
We can round down if you prefer that, 36.
I mean, then, Mr. President, with Bradfield's saying they can do the whole amount, figure 38 and then the 32 from Jose and Sons, we're looking at, what, 70,000? And if I could, Mr. President, Jose and Sons, are you sure of that number? I mean, could you get a piece of equipment that's a year older for 28,000 or for 24? Because we're gonna be tying up money, as Counselor Tibbin said, that, maybe we wouldn't move, we don't wanna tie it up for that year span.
Well, we know that the equipment, sometimes depends what the deal is, when you want to purchase it. It might be 32, it might be 35, but you guys are only going to give me 32. But also can be 20, 25. See what I mean? So for me, I mean, if I'm going to spend the 32, I'm going to go, for the pen.
That's a piece of equipment.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
if I can ask Ms. Odom to make a
I
comment.
was going to recommend, I'm reaching for the application, and again, first of all, I'd like to state we need to finish proofing out the application. Again, we've stated it is an eligible activity, but the financials have yet to be reviewed, so we need to do that before we can do anything definitive. But looking at the request, normally what we would require is a estimate. We would need to get an estimate, meaning a written estimate of cost from a dealer as to the cost of that machinery. So if you're saying that 32,000 is what you think it's going to be, we're going to need to see based on what? based on getting estimates from different vendors. It says, you do state here a forklift, backhoe, loader, but there's no specifics on cost as to estimates.
So you're asking that, you need to run us copies of their financial that they just brought tonight. And then you would like to see an estimate from a dealership for those items that they're requesting.
Yes.
And we can table this till July 7th at the next public hearing. Once we have all seen it, your staff has reviewed it, then we can have this discussion, luckily, again. At the next public hearing.
Okay.
Because I don't see a.
Well, I'm going to make this suggestion then, okay, that I think the target ought to be the one salary coming out of property maintenance, moving it to the general fund, the higher or the lower. In this case, probably the higher, and determine what that amount is, and then match it up as best we can to these. If there's a shortfall of full funding for both of them, I think that it should be reduced equally. I.e., if it's $2,000 short of the 70,000, then one's at 31, one's at 36.8. Okay? So, I guess I'm just, how does council feel about that?
That's cool.
I can live with that,
Yeah, I
yeah.
live with it.
Okay. Then I'll ask that Counselor Adams, you withdraw your motion and replace it with a motion to fund Bradfield and Joseph and Son, Jose and Sons at full request to the fullest amount possible based on one salary moved from CDBG funding to general fund, and that would include salary and benefits. You don't have to say all that, all you have to do is say so moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, we were going to ask for any discussion?
As a point of order, is there any discussion
Well,
on the motion?
there is, but I have no problem making those changes tonight. What I need to understand between now and the next time we vote on this is on the Jose and Sons recycling. The full nature of what you guys do. And I understand that I heard tonight that this is a qualifying applicant. I don't know that I'm in favor of supporting $32,000 for a backhoe front-end loader if I don't understand the nature of what goes on in your organization. So between now and then, I will. I just don't want this to be construed from me personally as my support for this particular item. I have questions, and those questions don't allow me to fully commit to it. The Bradfield Center, I appreciate the clarification on the timing of the spending of the money. I think that that's a wise investment in our community. I want to make sure that this other decision is a wise investment in our community. I just want to be upfront and clear with Jose and Sons now that you'll be seeing me and I'll understand your operations.
You're welcome anytime.
Mr. President?
Mr. Lowe.
Yes, can I get the address to your operations, please?
1016 South Central.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. President.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes, I just got a couple things. I know we're running late here, but it's great that we work together, put something together. I know some people have not, that wanted money, ain't getting money though, but you see how we work together and make it happen. You know, the organizations, and we got to continue doing this. I know United Way is looking for money. You know, I understand they're looking for different things there too, and they are a good organization. You know, but I'm excited about how we sat here and worked on it Ms. Adams, everybody worked together and made this happen. You know, we got two organizations here, you got two brand-new organizations, had never received any money, receiving money now. And like Tom said, and Jesse said, everybody want to make sure everything is right. They're not trying to say you ain't gonna do it and nothing like that, but we want to make sure, that's it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. I guess I'll just clarify the intent, is that this will be the changes that would be made for the next discussion. They are subject to change. There are lots of, not lots, there are still some questions. I'm suggested that motion in order to get this expedited and moving. I'm not going to sit and say that I'm in 100% or that I would vote yes on this at this time. I have some reservations on parts, okay? But I think for the sake of moving it forward to the next public hearing, that's the thing to do. So all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Going to declare the public hearing closed. We're going to move on to the agenda.
We're on to the consent calendar. We'll be on to-
Consent calendar.
Yeah, consent calendar. Mr. President, I move that item A of the consent calendar
9 o'clock, we had 6 minutes.
be received, filed, and approved.
Second.
Motion and second is to receive and file item A. Receive, file, and approve item A. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 1.
From the Finance Director regarding legislation for contract services.
Mr. President,
Mr. Tevin?
I move that communication number 1 be received and filed. Legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
Motion and second is to receive and file communication number 1. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 2.
From the Finance Director regarding legislation for budget amendments.
Mr. President,
Mr. Tevin?
I move that communication number 2 be received and filed. Legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 2. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 3.
From the Director of Utilities regarding legislation to amend the city sewer use ordinance.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that communication number 3 be received and filed.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 3. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 4.
From the Deputy Director of Utilities requesting legislation to make payment to the Ohio EPA.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that communication number 4 be received and filed and authorize the law director to prepare any necessary legislation.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 4 and to authorize the law director to prepare any necessary legislation. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 5.
From the Deputy Director of Utilities requesting legislation to allow a purchase of a high-capacity trailer-mounted pump.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that communication number 5 be received and filed and authorize the law director to prepare any necessary legislation.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 5 and to authorize the law director to prepare the necessary legislation. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 6.
From the City Engineer regarding legislation to amend the contract with Suburban Maintenance and Construction.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that communication number 6 be received and filed. Legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 6. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Ordinance 145-14.
An ordinance amending the 2014 annual budget.
Mr. President,
Mr. Tevin.
I move that ordinance 145-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is that ordinance 145-14 be passed on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 145-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 146-14.
Authorizing a second amendment to ordinance number 187-13.
Mr. President,
Mr. Tevin.
I move that ordinance 146-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second?
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 146-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Lowe?
No.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
No.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 146-14 has been passed on its first reading by a 6-2 vote. Ordinance 147-14.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with System Innovators Incorporated.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that ordinance 147-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 147-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 147-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 148-14.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with S&ME Inc.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that ordinance 148-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 148-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 148-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 149-14.
Authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the reactivation of granular activated carbon in 2 carbon contractors at the water treatment plant.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that ordinance 149-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
Get ahead of myself.
Been a long meeting, but it hasn't been now. The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 149-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 149-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 150-14.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with URS Consultants.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that ordinance 150-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 150-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 150-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 151-14.
Amending ordinance 7714.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that ordinance 151-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 151-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 151-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 152-14.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the State of Ohio Law Enforcement Support Office.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon.
I move that ordinance 152-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 152-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 152-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 153-14.
Amending section 1040.13 of the codified ordinances of Lima, Ohio.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that ordinance 153-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 153-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 153-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 154-14.
Amending Section 244.03 of the Codified Ordinances of Lima, Ohio.
Mr. President,
Mr. Lowe.
I move that ordinance 154-14 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 154-14 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
And Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Ordinance 154-14 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Miscellaneous business, Mr. Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I have a lot. I know we've been here a while. I want to just get a couple things out. First thing before I say anything else, I want to give condolences to Mr. Steve Cleaves. He lost his brother, I believe, today. I just wanted to put that out publicly for your prayers to be with him and his family, just for comfort. Second thing is the prayer visual that took place yesterday by New Life Church was just fantastic. Pastor Williams and his congregation did a great job. I looked around for certain people, and they called Chief Martin to the mic, and it was a pleasure to see our Chief of Police deliver a prayer in the manner in which he did. I really felt proud. I just want to say thank you for the prayer that you delivered yesterday. I also would like to call a HR meeting on June the 30th at 6 p.m. The meeting is on civil service responsibilities, hiring process, and retirements, and requirements in reference to the timeline and its adjustments. Can I get a second?
You don't need a second.
Oh,
You can just
sorry.
call the meeting.
Cool. Meeting's called.
Give you a second if you want.
Please.
Second. Oh, you don't need it.
4, I want to thank the Veterans Memorial Civic Center for the donations that they gave local vets. They just did that this weekend, clothes, bags, supplies. It was wonderful. I just really appreciate what they did. They had a lot of volunteers over there. It was really nice seeing them giving to the vets. There was a lot of individuals in there that needed those clothing items and supplies. It was fantastic. I want to bring up a point. I have not received, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have not received a report on the cat trapping that we allocated money for. They told us that they would bring a report back to us. If anyone has received that, I would love to get a copy of that. We put $10,000 their way, and haven't seen it. Also would like to put out publicly, High Octane Drumline. A lot of people are asking, they see this in the parade, how can they get involved? It is absolutely free. It is held at the Bradfield Center. We teach you how to read it, write it, play it, all percussion. It's every Tuesday at 6 p.m. The other thing that I would like to bring up, and might hit a couple sore spots, but recently I did not agree with a job or a contract replacing an individual or putting the same individual back in place. And I asked a question of the age on the individual, and before I can finish my statement, I was told it was age discrimination. There was many reports that went out. I do not totally agree with the report. I think it was blown up in a magnitude that was just simply crazy. There's no other way to say it. But I would publicly like about 2 minutes to read my response. I received a letter from Mr. Ozier that a city employee felt that he was being age discrimination. And my initial thought was not to comment, but I think it really needs to be done. When I got the letter and I got the report from the individual that I got the letter from wasn't even in the meeting, which lets me know that someone from the meeting went back and said something. And I think that we need to get a full story first. So just to let the public know my response so that nothing gets fabricated, the letter came from Mr. Ozier, and I simply stated, I am an elected official. I do not work for the city administration. I may ask any question I choose to ask. Mr. Brown was never at pre-council, nor yourself. The law director started screaming age discrimination before I could even finish my sentence on my stance. It amazes me the lengths the administration will go through to demean a person's character. I feel it is shameful and a disgrace. I will continue to ask questions that I feel necessary for the betterment of the city. Maybe if I wasn't cut off before I finished speaking, I would have been heard completely. Stop the bullying and intimidating tactics. This will not sway my voting. I owe the people of this city the truth, and they hold me accountable to do so. Harassment of Jesse Lowe has been going on for the last 4 years. I am not a yes man, but if it doesn't stop, I will have my lawyer call the city, and we will go from there. Mr. Brown has been misled, and I feel this is a shameful move on the part of the administration. All I wanted to do was get a full understanding of the position and the contract. I also stated to him, I have a question. What is wrong with us talking about it? Why the rush? Why was I cut off? Why was the administration not wanting the public to know? Why not bid out on the job? The mayor said, we don't want this to get out because of past history. It would look bad. Let's stop the games and work together. And I stated, God tells us to show love and do what we can for others, which I do on my job. It's not that the administration doesn't like me. They don't like the Christ in me. I pray a change of heart happens quickly on their part. Again, please stop the threats and harassment and tell Mr. Brown to get all of his facts first. And that was my statement back, and I just want to put that out there publicly before it hits the papers, which I know it will. But that's where I stand, and I'm going to represent the people to the best of my ability every time I get a chance, and I feel that I can ask any question that I choose to ask. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Mr. Tevin? Nothing to see. Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to refer to the Traffic Commission to do a traffic study concerning Dingledine and Prospect from Sugar Street up to Prospect. Been getting calls of speeding. I left a message on Major Baker's phone today to see if they could do some enforcement. And this is with the possibility to see if we can justify a four-way stop request.
Second.
The motion and second is to refer the issue as stated by Councilor Adams to the Traffic Commission. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Nothing else, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Glenn?
I got a couple of things. First, I'd like to make a motion that, I'd like to make a motion for the Traffic Commission to do a study on Elm Street in Central and Elm. That's been very, very tough. I've been getting a lot of calls on that, Central and Elm Street. They just make that turning lane from a one-way, yeah, Central and Elm. They just make the turning lane, you can take a left in on Central now, and this been really a mess from 5 to 7. So I'd like to make a motion that I make a traffic study for Central and Elm.
Second.
Or like a stop sign or?
Well, I'm gonna just do a study first.
Okay.
I know they just took the light down up in that area. There used to be a little waving light there. Yeah, just see what need to be put there. We might can check our stop sign, or I know a four-way can't go there because they just changed all the routes and stuff in that area. But it's really tough during the, like I say, during the
What was the intersection again, Mr. Glenn?
Central and Elm. You're going down, you're
Elm
coming down
Street?
Elm, you come down Central from the old Pangos straight
Yeah.
down to Elm, Fuqua.
Stop sign.
Elm.
Yeah, that's Elm. That's what I say,
There
Elm.
was never a signal there.
No,
Yes, it was back in
but
the day.
they changed all the directions though.
Yeah.
See,
Okay.
it's two-way now.
So the motion and the second then is to refer
It's bad.
a study for traffic control devices at the intersection of Central and Elm to the Traffic Commission. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President?
Mr. Lowe?
Yes. One of the agreements I had with Telsa, that's building the building there, was to have that study done. And I believe it's being conducted. I think you need to speak with Mr. Niemeyer.
Well, it can be referred, and if it's already in progress, we're in good shape.
Okay, Mr. Law.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries.
The other thing I got there is, I want to make a motion that I put, we have a big problem with groundhog. And I told a lot of my constituents that we'll bring it up and I'm going to place it in the neighborhood concern group. I'd like to make a motion that we put about, let's check on what we can do about the groundhogs in the city of Lima. In the neighborhood concern group.
Second.
The motion and second is to refer the issue of groundhog control to the Neighborhood Concerns Committee. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And I'd like to thank everyone who gave me the calls. My wife is doing fine. Thank you, Miss Allen, Miss Miles. Thank you guys so much for calling. She's doing great now. We celebrate this weekend our 12th wedding anniversary. I gotta make sure I got it right. She watches
You
on TV.
better get it right.
Yeah, I just started for a
It'll
second.
be your last.
But you know, when I got back, I know that'd be my last one. I can't afford that. But you know, when we got back, we had an opportunity to leave. I didn't get to make it downtown. But my mom, when I walked down, my mom said, "Dear, you know, that chief of police," she said the chief of police did an excellent job. She said it brought tears to her face. And she told me, "Let you know, you did a good prayer." And they needed that prayer. And she said, "I've never seen," she never seen no police chief or police officer ever did a prayer like that, unless you see it on TV, you know, but real life. And she liked it, like Jesse said, that it really touched her. And she told me, "Let you know that." And she said, "You got to be a man of God." She told me to tell you that too. So I said, I'm not going to ask him that though, but you know, he knows himself and he don't even need to know that. But she appreciate that. Also, I appreciate everyone, and I know I was gone this past weekend, but the prayers you're doing for the family, we're going to get back on the spot again, and I appreciate everyone talking to the family. I know we had some tragedy in the city of Lima, and yes, it bothers me so much. I don't allow no one to say anything bad about Lima, you know. And I had opportunity, some people were talking at Walmart, which is so, you know. But I know we're going to get back on track. We're all going to work together, like the pastor has said. You know, we all continue. You know, this came about, and we just need to, we got a lot of learning to learn. We got a lot of kids, work with kids, but it's come together. And I'm just going to leave it right there because it's hurt me with all this going on. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Mrs. Miles.
While we're talking about that topic here, I also want to start with that topic here. I've been gone for the last 8 days, you know, and just got back late last night here. And my vacation was just to relax and just kind of take it easy. But then I got the phone call about another homicide, and it just really grieved my heart, you know, that this is happening in our community. And I want people to realize that this is not just a race problem.
No.
This is a community
Community
problem.
problem.
You know, this is impacting our entire community. Is hindering our economic development, is hindering our job creations, is hindering people relocating or even staying here. So I want people to take this seriously. I want us to come together as one, that all of the me's will join up with the we's, and that we will be united.
Yes.
And try to make sure that we can make a difference in this community. It can no longer be this particular group of people's problem. This is the city problem. You know, and we all are impacted. Jesse mentioned about the ripple effect, and this is definitely a ripple effect. You know, when I lived in Finley, I always have heard people talk negatively about Lima all the time, and I was always defending my city because the image that they perceive for our community. And so I just want everyone, you know, our city officials, all the way from the mayor, everybody, even us, that we have got to see this as something greater than just a race problem.
That's right.
That it is a community problem and that we all need to unite together. Again, all these me's here should join in and we become we. And we make a difference in this community and we join together and that we do whatever. I don't have the answers. I really cannot tell you what the answer is. But I know all these divisions, this person here, that person there, or some people I think just allow this, it happens and they accept it and they go on until the next one happens. We can no longer have that mindset, you know. Again, I it grieves my heart. I lived in this community most of my life, And when I continue to see this, and I see certain people, when there's organizations, when there's events to try to raise the awareness, that only certain people show up. You know, and so I'm just saying that let us all join together. All of us who have power, have positions in this community, let us come together as one and try to do what we can to make this community what it needs to be. No longer let us be called lost in middle America. We are not that. You know, we need to let our light shine so that darkness will go away. And so that's just something I had to say. And, you know, and even the rest of my week here, all I thought about was my community. You know, so again, I just want all of these meetings here, let us come together as a we, and let us make a difference in this community. Also, I'd like to call a neighborhood concerns meeting, which we will resume the conversation on farm animals in the city. And that meeting will be July 10th at 6 p.m. right here. And we will also try to talk about the ground halls that Councilor Glenn just mentioned. So again, neighborhood concerns meeting, Thursday, July 10th at 6 p.m. to continue the conversation.
Maybe you can feed them a chicken.
Get rid of them, huh?
Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, to briefly echo on what Councilor Miles had to say, you know, I'd like to send prayers out to the families, the two families and friends of the people that we lost. One of the young men that we lost played football for me for 4 years when he was in youth football for Little Lima Steelers. And so it was heartbreaking to go there and attend, go to the funeral home, and I see this kind of thing. So along with what Councilor Miles said, I think we need to do everything that we can to stop these kind of violence. One of the things that you can do to get to know our police officers better, on Saturday, June 28th at 10 to 1 p.m. at the Northwest Street McDonald's, there'll be coffee with a cop where you can go in and ask the officers questions and get to know the ones from your neighborhood. And the last thing is, as I always say, everybody, I'd like to remind people to be good to each other. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Mr. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I'm the other guy that was in this letter that came down from the administration and the mayor. I just want everyone to know that I will continue to ask questions. I will continue to do my job. My job is to find out what's best for our community, and no intimidation and no motivation from someone else is going to change my mind. I don't try to change yours. I will offer an opinion, but I certainly won't ask you how you vote. This goes to our administration in particular, because this was a direct slap, because no one followed up to ask questions. There was a lot of untruths in the letter that I have proof of. So I did not appreciate the tone, nor did I appreciate the letter as it came out. I will continue to do my job, and I will continue to ask the questions that I think are necessary to make an educated decision. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. I don't have anything other than to say that by the next time we meet, I believe we will have celebrated our country's birthday again on July 4th, so I hope everybody has a happy and safe July 4th. Our next meeting is the 7th, correct, July 7th. So, with that,
Mr. President?
Tevin?
I move the Lima City Council adjourn until July 7th at 7 p.m. in these chambers.
Second. The motion, the second, is to adjourn until July 7th in these chambers at 7 p.m. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. We are adjourned.